Town of Brookhaven,
Present.
Town of Southampton,
Marty Shea, representing Supervisor Jay Schneiderman, present.
okay, Town of Riverhead,
Dan McCormick, representing Supervisor Yvette Aguirre, present, and I understand the supervisor is joining as well.
yes.
Yes, I'm here, Dan.
Okay, great.
I
Thank you.
see you.
Thank you.
Suffolk County,
Dorian Dale, representing the county executive.
Andy Freeling, representing the county executive with Dorian.
Janet Longo's here also.
okay, thank you. I just have to get rid of this thing on my screen here. All right,
No chocolates.
so we have a quorum present,
Can I make a statement again?
absolutely.
At last minute, I think at this point, the governor should appoint a representative. We do not have a full quorum until the governor's representative is here. If one or two of us are absent for whatever reason, it's difficult to conduct business. The governor should appoint a representative. It's now 6 months, almost 7 months since we've been without a representative. Doesn't have to be the head, the regional head of the DEC. Could be any representative he chooses, but the governor needs to appoint a representative. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Romaine. Okay, so we'll start with good afternoon. My name is Judy Jacobson. I'm the interim executive director for the Central Pine Barrens Commission, and I'll be serving as the temporary non-voting chair to conduct today's commission meeting. This is the June 16th, 2021 regularly scheduled commission meeting, and it is being recorded. Minutes will also be taken, and the recording will be placed on the commission's website at pb.state.ny.New York. The notice of this meeting follows the open meetings law as amended by Executive Order 202.1 and as subsequently extended, which allows meetings to take place remotely. So moving on to the first item on the agenda, item 1, administrative and public comment. Public comments, verbal comments will be received via Zoom. Written comments received via regular mail and email. By 12 p.m. will be read during this section. We have not received any email comments at this time. Is there anyone from the public present that would like to provide public comment? Please select the raise your hand feature or indicate in the chat box your desire to provide public comment. Angie, do you see anyone?
Oops. No, I don't see anyone. No one's hand is raised and no one has written anything in the chat box.
Okay. Anyone else that has called in? Do we have any call-ins, Angie?
Yes, we have one call-in.
Okay. Would that individual want to provide public comment? If so, identify yourself.
I think it's Andy.
Oh,
He's on both.
so we know Andy's here. All right. That's the problem sometimes with these Zoom meetings. All right, so then moving on, since there's no public comment, we will move on to item 1B, the minutes for the May 26, 21 commission meeting. Does any of the commission members have changes to the minutes? If not, then I will need a motion to approve the May 26 commission meeting minutes.
So moved. Second.
I'm sorry, who was the second?
Dorian Dale.
Thank you, Dorian. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Aye.
None opposed. The motion passes 4-0. Item 2A, under Science and Stewardship, is the draft resolution of the Central Pine Barrens Joint Planning and Policy Commission to approve an agreement with the County of Suffolk to operate a dedicated brush truck training facility via the New York Wildfire and Incident Management Academy. You should have received a draft resolution in your e-packet to asking to approve a new 5-year license agreement with Suffolk County to use a vacant wooded parcel owned by Suffolk County located near the Suffolk County Fire Rescue Emergency Services Facility in Yaphank. It's outside of the Pine Barrens. This agreement is to allow the commission to operate through its fire academy, a brush truck training facility for the local volunteer firefighters to learn how to properly operate a brush truck through a wooded environment. The commission originally had an original 5-year agreement in 2015 that had 2 1-year extensions, and now that has expired, so they will need to secure a new 5-year agreement. Could I have a motion to approve the
Make a
draft?
motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2. Dorian, are you in favor?
My hand is up.
Okay, I can't see you. I'm sorry, I apologize. It's the screen. All right, and Marty, you're also in favor? Okay.
Yes.
There's only so many people that fit on the screen. So the motion passes with the vote 4-0. Moving on to item 3, under planning, land use, and the Pine Barrens Credit Program. Dan McCormick has asked that we move to item 3D, the EBDK facility in Calverton, because he has to leave by a certain time today. And wanted to make sure that he was present when this is covered. So item 3D is under the compatible growth area. It's a New York State DEC referral, EBDK at Calverton. Increase the irrigation well capacity to 35 gallons per minute for 3 wells, 2 at 15 and 1 at 10 for irrigation capacity of 4.6 million gallons per year. And originally there was a draft response letter on the commission's agenda at the last meeting. Town of Riverhead had asked for it to be tabled to this meeting. And I don't know if you want to lead off with Julie just providing a little background, and Dan then for you to provide your comments. Is that
That's fine,
okay?
Judy. That's fine, and thank you, Judy, for taking it out of order.
Okay. Julie?
Thank you. Yeah, good afternoon. The DEC referred this application for comments from the commission. It is a rehabilitation facility and it's in the EPCAL property area in the town of Riverhead. There's a proposal to increase the capacity of 3 wells for irrigation purposes only at this site. And so we had a draft letter in the package with some questions about the proposed capacity and the need for that for this site, and some other concerns about potential impacts on nearby tiger salamander habitat and wetlands adjacent to the site related to this proposal. So, but I'll just obviously let the town of Riverhead supervisor and representative go ahead with this item.
The location is inside the EPCAL fence. We have established through the Pine Barren Commission in December of 2020 that anything inside the EPCAL fence is considered economic development. that falls under the Club 9.2. And based on that, it is a rehab. It's a very extensive professional rehab center. They're using groundwater. And we feel that this is economic development and that it should not be subjected to review. We're talking about an irrigation system, and again, it's utilizing groundwater. And I'm going to defer to Dan McCormick, who has been doing the research for me. Dan, can you take it from here, please?
Yes, Supervisor, thank you very much. First off, I wanted to thank Julie for her dedicated efforts concerning the draft response that she did, as well as other staff on this matter, and for the time that they put into this matter. Secondly, I did distribute a memorandum last evening regarding this matter. So I'm going to assume that both commission members themselves, as well as designated representatives, have received that document as well as reviewed it. If you have not, please kindly advise me otherwise. I will continue as we're speaking. As the supervisor has alluded to, this project is undisputedly within the fence line at EPCAL. It involves private inpatient substance abuse rehabilitation, which clearly speaks to economic development. And as per the memorandum that I distributed last evening, it would be the town's position that sub-activities serving the direct interests of economic development also serve the interests of economic development, even on a sub-activity basis. With that in mind, and consistent with CLUP number 9.2, as well as this commission's decision in December of 2020 regarding the Island Water Park application, it is the town of Riverhead's request of the commission to direct dedicated staff to send a letter to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation indicating that the commission does not have review jurisdiction of this particular project based on its activity use as well as its location within the fence line at EPCAL. And I do want to re-emphasize, as I did in the memorandum, that this project is not devoid of regulatory oversight. As indicated by the referral to the commission, the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation is still a regulatory authority with oversight capacity concerning this project. And secondly, I do want to indicate, obviously, that the program or project sponsor and developer is still bound by and needs to be in compliance with the town of Riverhead's site plan regarding this matter, specifically regarding additional oversight by the DEC concerning that irrigation well system. And just to reiterate, that well system is designed to irrigate the landscaping and other areas of the facility, which has a direct benefit to those folks who are members or patients at this particular facility regarding their rehabilitative process and therapy. Thank you very much for your time and consideration in this matter.
Madam Chairperson, if I can, Dan?
Yes.
Some questions. Why did the DEC refer it to the Pine Barrens Commission?
I'm sorry, the first part, Supervisor, you said why did they?
Yeah, why did they, I mean, if we have no oversight over anything. When I made the decision in December, it was on that specific location for that water park. But I mean, I am concerned about things inside, as I'm sure everyone is, about the amount of water usage. Are they, is this facility going to be hooked up to public water?
Supervisor, the facility actually considered hookup to public water concerning irrigation of the landscaping. They did weigh that consideration, but there was a concern that it could potentially overtax the system or at least address potable water, which was better used for drinking and other uses, as opposed to irrigation of that particular site.
Where are they getting their drinkable water, their potable water from?
That comes directly from the town of Riverhead's water district.
So they're hooked, they have intentions to hook up to the water district.
My understanding is they already hooked up to the water district.
They are, okay.
And that facility is an ongoing and active business establishment.
This
So-
is just an extension.
So they're already hooked up to the Riverhead Water. Are they in the Riverhead Water District?
Yes, to my understanding, they are, yes.
Okay. But why would they not use that type of water for irrigation? How many gallons do they need a day? An hour, a minute?
They are, I believe they have actually reduced the amount of flow that they're requesting as per Julie's research. So in my memorandum, I believe they're actually going to limit water use to the months between April 15th and October 15th of each year. Additionally, they're only going to utilize irrigated water 4 days a week and only 7 hours a day during that particular time period. And they're only going to actually water 2.5 acres of the total 95-acre site. So this is only a very small part of this very large parcel at that location.
I heard, and thank you for giving that, that gives me a better view of what it is, because I heard larger numbers that appear to me to be larger numbers in terms of the amount of water that they're using. What was the number again that you quoted? You quoted a number that they were using in terms of gallonage.
May I ask Julie on that? I believe, Julie, you had that information from the applicant?
Yeah, it's 3 wells. 2 of them are at the capacity of 15 gallons per minute, and 1 at 10 gallons per minute. And so when you do all the math at the number of minutes and the number of minutes a day and the 7 hours a day times 4 days a week times 6 months a year, it came out to the amount that's in the agenda, the 4.6 million gallons a year. That was with the 6-month usance.
And that's
So I don't
with
know if they
limitation. Boy, it seems like a heavy water usage, but maybe I'm not that familiar with. A couple million gallons of water, it seems like a lot of water.
Supervisor, I would point out that the DEC had previously approved this particular project regarding use of those irrigation wells. So this is not a new application per se. It's simply an amended approval concerning the earlier approval of respectively, I believe, 15 gallons per minute, 15 gallons per minute, and then 10 gallons per minute. So they're increasing the already approved usage of that irrigated water to the level of, I believe, 35 gallons per minute going forward. And to your point, Supervisor, it seems to me on a practical and sensible basis, which was weighed by the applicant, that use of groundwater for irrigation certainly seems to be more prudent and beneficial than use of potable water regarding drinking water. And of course, from a practical standpoint, this irrigated water is being returned to the surface and then the subsurface regarding drainage, of course, minus a de minimis amount that would be evaporated during the process, especially during the summer months. So the water being used is being returned to the environment anyway, for the most part. And it seems to me, as a practical basis, it makes more sense to utilize groundwater than drinking water or water that would be used directly by individuals in the water district.
Thank you. I just have one last question for council, if I may, John.
Sir.
You made that decision in December
Yes.
regarding, I guess it's the water park where they were
Yes.
going.
Yeah, it was Allen Water Park.
Right. That
So it was Allen
decision,
Water Park specifically.
yeah, was that a specific decision for that, or was that a decision about all of EPCAL?
The decision was a specific decision because there was only Allen Water Park was before the commission at the time.
Okay. I asked that question because Mr. McCormick, who's given a very detailed and informative presentation, indicated that the decision we made in December had far greater implications, that it applied to all of EPCAL. And what you're saying now, let me just understand that is not the case. It was only to that specific decision.
Dan, do you have the club 9.2 in front of you?
Yes, and that was also distributed, Supervisor, via my memorandum last evening. So everyone should have that. That would be on the last page.
Okay.
If I could kindly speak to Supervisor Remain's questions, I think this is an important point regarding the history of 9.2 and now its practical application to projects at EPCAL. 9.2, as we addressed back in December concerning Island Water Park, speaks to the proposition that every project involving economic development within that fence line at EPCAL is beyond the jurisdiction of the Pine Barrens Commission. As I alluded to in my memorandum last evening, that was the intent of the town of Riverhead. That was the intent in passage of 9.2. And but for that consideration, the town of Riverhead never would have signed on to the CLUP and the plan at that particular point. So we are now seeing the practical application of that which was decided 20 plus years ago with regard to the town of Riverhead's commitment to this plan and its tacit assurance from the other commission members that those projects of economic development within the fence line at EPCAL would be excluded from the jurisdiction of the Pine Barrens Commission. We're simply asking now that the commission and its members adhere to that commitment and honor that commitment going back to the original passage of the plan and 9.2. So to speak to your question, Supervisor Remain, and obviously it's right on point, the town of Riverhead is going to take the position that every single project within that fence line of an economic nature is beyond the jurisdiction of this commission. Not beyond regulatory oversight, most importantly, because as I alluded to before, the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation will continue to be the oversight authority for these types of projects, as evinced by their very referral to the commission concerning this particular issue. So I do want to make that very clear. Your question's right on point, and we want to be very direct about that. And I also want to speak to a very important consideration, as we did with Island Water Park, and as we are doing right now. We are tying up our dedicated Pine Barrens Commission staff on these projects every time they come up. Quite frankly, it's not fair to staff. We really should adhere to 9.2 and simply declare that all projects of an economic nature within that fence line are beyond the jurisdiction. So we don't have to tie staff up each and every time we address one of these projects going forward. And that's my concern at this particular point, especially regarding those projects that are economic in nature.
Dan, as always, you've done a thorough job. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
We are tying staff up. I think it was a referral from DEC that had to be addressed. And my question at the outset, not that you were informed, you did a tremendous job for your town, but my question was directed to John Milazzo, our counsel. Is that your understanding that in December, with the decision of the Island Water Park, that we excluded any other consideration of anything that was being constructed within the fence line of EPCAL?
That's not what the resolution said. The
Okay.
words of the resolution were limited to that project.
Okay, I don't want to debate this now because obviously we have two attorneys who are very skilled and capable, have a difference of opinion, and perhaps this should be reserved for a private discussion of the board in executive session, since this is a legal matter where I think matters of that nature should be discussed. And we could hear the opinions of both Mr. McCormick and Mr. Milazzo and any other town that wants to weigh in. So maybe we could schedule an executive session at some point in the future to discuss these issues.
Town of Riverhead is open to that, absolutely.
So in anticipation of such an interaction, regardless what the forum may be, It would be, I think, useful to get a clearer understanding of what is defined by economic development. I think that's not something you have to answer at this point in time, but it is a rather expansive and all-encompassing phrase that frankly can be applied across the board. I mean, I could suggest that, giving my son $10 to mow my lawn is a form of economic development. So I think that's certainly a pivotal phrase that needs to be addressed and clarified whenever we happen to have this exchange. Thank you.
As far as your side is concerned, that is economic development.
The loss on your side, though, economic loss on your side.
Actually, I have beach grass, so I never mow it, but I was just posing that as a hypothetical. Anyway, moving forward, that's the only point we'd certainly be interested in hearing about in the future.
Great, thanks, Dory.
Okay, so
Dan, just for some clarification here, so you're looking for staff to modify the letter and to start by indicating that the activity constitutes non-development. You have, when we get these types of referrals, even where the consensus is that an activity is non-development, do you have concerns with commission staff providing additional advisory comments? In this case, as they relate to endangered species and the level of pumping or irrigation, because in many cases, commission staff simply receive advisory referrals from other agencies. Those agencies are oftentimes looking for the commission to weigh in because they know the commission staff has a lot of expertise in terms of environmental impacts. So if the consensus is that the activities we're considering right now constitute non-development, is your position that the commission staff should not be offering any additional advisory comments?
That would be my position, as consistent with 9.2 and the jurisdictional prohibition at EPCAL. Yes, that would be correct. Because taking your point, which I understand your position on this, if this matter involved the same activity elsewhere beyond the commission jurisdiction, I'm not quite sure that the DEC would make reference or referral to the commission on that. They certainly have an abundance of staff and dedicated personnel with expertise in these particular areas. So I don't necessarily believe that they couldn't function without the dedicated and educated efforts of our staff, which obviously is beyond reproach which is clearly a group of expert individuals on that. So to answer that question, I would say no. 9.2 has a bright line, right? I'm sorry, a bright line of demarcation. Anything within that fence line is beyond the jurisdiction of the commission. But again, I would emphasize not beyond the regulatory oversight of the DEC as evinced in this particular matter. And perhaps as Supervisor Romaine has alluded to, this does speak to a larger global consideration in a future executive session, which as Supervisor Aguirre has indicated we would be amenable to that. But as we sit here today on this particular matter, I believe staff's entitled to know the direction in which we're going, which is an application or project similar to the one we've already ruled on in December of 2020, simply indicating to the DEC that we do not have jurisdiction of this particular matter within the fence line. And that would be my application today on behalf of Supervisor Aguirre in the town of Riverhead.
Yeah, I'm not actually debating that. I'm just thinking that one of the roles that the commission should play is an educational role. And I hear what you're saying in terms of your concern about dedicating staff hours to projects that the commission doesn't have authority over. But that being said, it still can be helpful for the commission to play an educational role when appropriate in an advisory manner.
As I said before, Marty, from a practical and prudent standpoint, I absolutely understand what you're saying. But as John Malazzo can tell you from a legal perspective, there would be concerns of the town of Riverhead regarding that particular aspect in relation to 9.2. So again, I think that might be something we could talk about as a global issue down the road in an executive session on this particular issue. But
Okay.
your point is all well taken from a environmental standpoint.
All right. Thank you.
So Dan, then at today, do you still want the staff to send a letter to DEC with stating the commission has non-jurisdiction?
That would be my application. And Supervisor Aguirre, could you confirm that's what we are looking to do today at this point?
Yes, and thank you, Dan. I know you've been putting a lot of work into this. Absolutely. This is, again, within the fence line. And I think, Ed, you also have a very similar club regulation. I think, what is it, 9.3 for Brookhaven, Dan?
That's correct. That's correct, Supervisor.
Yeah, and under the similar circumstances in EPCAL. And we're just going to ask the commission to allow this, send the letter, and we will explore it in executive session.
Do we need a motion on that, John? Or a general consensus that a letter should be sent?
I don't, so what you have is, what I'm hearing is one member of the commission is asking for further discussion in executive session. You're asking, another member is asking for action on an item. So right now, sort of Supervisor Romaines sought to go in a closed session, an executive session, to, I think, sort of globally talk about EPCAL and how this all works together. And if you, to Supervisor Romaine's point, if this letter is sent today, it obviates the need for that discussion until there's the next project at EPCAL in a sense. And they're developing this sort of pattern of everything at EPCAL is exempt, and here's another point, another marker on the scale. So I think that it may not be mission critical time sensitive. Perhaps the commission would authorize the staff to write a letter asking for another month to respond to DEC. So that way whatever timeline a DEC is under to handle this permit isn't affected, and then they're able to process it with the input of the commission, whether we have the executive session today, or if we have to do it next month, or whenever, or a special meeting, however we deem that appropriate. All of the topics to be discussed are items of attorney-client privilege. This matter has been litigated in the past. So this is an area that it would be perfectly appropriate for a closed session. So Judy, my answer to your question is, given sort of the binary nature of the two requests and the opposition therein, I think to send a letter would to undercut Supervisor Romaine's position. Now, having said that, the town of Riverhead can turn around and equally valid. If we don't send a letter, you're undercutting my position. So this is sort of where the commission has to cobble together some sort of consensus on how they wish to proceed.
Thank you, John, for framing it in those terms. With that in mind, Riverhead, obviously with the consent of Supervisor Aguirre, would then make at least a motion at this juncture to send that letter out, and quite frankly, see if the other commission members would support that, obviously in deference to Supervisor Romaine in his position. But we do obviously have two additional commission members today, and Riverhead would like to explore their position as to whether or not they would agree to that, because we then would have 3 votes.
Acknowledging Supervisor Romain's request to discuss legal issues related to this matter in an advisory session, would the town of Riverhead have an objection to discussing the matter in advisory today and then going back into the regular meeting if deemed necessary?
I would defer to Supervisor Aguirre on that. I believe we have sufficient information now that's been proffered to go forward with respect to a vote. I don't really see the benefit of going into executive session on this particular application at this time. We certainly could consider the global issues down the road with other projects in an executive session for another day. But at least as to this project today, I don't believe there would be any additional benefit by going into executive session and discussing it any further.
All right, thank you.
All right, so there is a motion. Is there a second?
On behalf of Supervisor Schneiderman, I will second the motion to send a revised letter deeming this activity and this action as non-development.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand.
Never mind.
I'm sorry, Dorian.
I'm sorry, I was on mute and I did want to just pose a question
Sorry.
to Dan McCormick. Given that you have cited the December decision as corroboration of your interpretation of 9.2, would this be one further citation for you to further your case and the case of the town of Riverhead relative to what the intent of 9.2 is as it is in regarding EPCAL?
Unequivocally, Dorian, it would be the town of Riverhead's position that this application, like the Island Water Park application, is consistent with the spirit and intent of 9.2.
I guess that does present something of a conundrum. While one might suggest that this particular issue is non-development and that there should be no modification to the letter, it does, I would suggest, pose at least a qualification. And I don't know from a procedural standpoint how that conceivably might be integrated into a response to the motion. But I think that while the merit of this particular application seems to be reasonably clear, the premise that it perpetuates a point of contention is, I think, conceivably problematic.
May I ask, Dorian, in what sense?
Because as you've just indicated, it's one further example that affirms the Riverhead interpretation of 9.2. That, I think, subsumes the concern expressed by Supervisor Romain, which is relative to economic development in general, and whether or not, unilaterally, there is effectively no future opposition to be posed to anything that is characterized as economic development within EPCAL.
Would you be amenable to the qualification that we are agreeing to send this letter out of non-jurisdiction concerning this project, and all of the respective parties reserve any and all rights they may have concerning any future applications of the same nature?
I think that's a fair qualification, yes.
With that,
Dan, with
yes.
respect to that, and again, so what Dorian's talking about and what Supervisor Romain's talking about is sort of this common law decision that is being developed with respect to EPCAL. So to the extent that all parties reserve a right, the rights are reserved by all parties. Which I think is what Supervisor Romaine and Dorian are just raising. Again, this is moving into that sort of closed session areas. But to the extent that if you reserve your rights and Dorian reserve his rights and the town reserves, Brookhaven and Southampton reserve their rights, there's no different than what's different. Because you could say, well, we reserve our right. They've done it twice. They've done it 3 times. They've done it 10 times. That's a result. Your right. You would be reserving. So, I mean, perhaps the language could be there's no precedential value and the commission will not rely on this, but then you'd have to really craft that letter important, and this just highlights, this is that's my observation on that.
The one point I think we have to consider from a practical standpoint is the DEC referral letter only relates to this particular project. And certainly not to confuse them, if we simply draft a letter regarding this project that we do not have jurisdiction, I think it's clear from the import of the letter, it only relates to this particular project. I think we would all agree to that, correct?
And again, I'll just answer the question, could be, so did Highland Water Park. That was only about Island Water Park letter. And now it's being cited here. Again, I strongly recommend that supervisors will, the motion's been made, it's been seconded. It's time for a vote. And then we should go into either closed or executive session to further this discussion. And with all due respect to all of the members of the commission.
Okay. All in favor, please raise your hand. It's Marty, Dorian.
I presume Riverhead is going to vote yes. Raise your hand, somebody. There you go.
Supervisor Romaine.
You guys don't vote for your own motion.
I want to abstain on this. I really would like to vote on this, but I think before we have an executive session, based on what conflicting legal opinions from Mr. McCormick and our counsel, John Malazzo, I don't feel comfortable voting for or against this resolution at this time. So I'm going to abstain on this resolution.
Okay. All right, the motion does pass with a vote of 3 in favor and 1 abstention.
Just Dan, because I know I appreciate your concern for staff. The letter that's being sent to the DEC says it relates only to EBDK. Okay. Right, and it's
right. The referral came in.
I just want to make sure because it changed over time.
Right.
Julie has to write it.
Right. Understood. But just so I'm clear, right? So are we going to executive session, or are we simply going to direct staff to send that letter of non-jurisdiction out at this point?
The resolution was to send the letter.
Resolution passed, so the staff has been.
Letter's going out.
What I would suggest, and I don't want to tie people up today, is that we schedule this maybe at the next meeting. We start off with an executive session so it can be discussed and people have some time to do preparation. I know you prepared very well on this issue, Dan, but this is, I think, I'm raising a larger question about the global issue, that we do some research and be ready to discuss this at our next meeting, and we could do an executive session either before or after the next meeting.
That's fine. If the commission can schedule it, that will be fine.
That'd be great. Thank you, Supervisor Romaine.
So at this point, then we will move back to item 3A under Planning, Land Use and Credit Program, Core Preservation Area, the Sunrise Wind LLC Core Hardship Waiver Application, offshore wind farm with onshore cable in town of Brookhaven. Schedule a public hearing. Julie, did you want to provide additional information?
Thank you. Yes, just that on June 4th, the commission received a compelling public need hardship waiver application for the development of this onshore cable in the town of Brookhaven in the core preservation area. So public hearing is proposed for August 18th. And the current decision deadline is October 1st. So maybe a decision would be made at the September 15th meeting unless there's an extension. So yeah, I think we need motions to schedule the public hearing if that's an acceptable date for you.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. All 4 in favor, none opposed. Motion passes, vote 4-0. The next item is item 3B, the Town of Southampton Zoning Board of Appeals referral, the Hampton West Park on Stewart Avenue in West Hampton to construct 6 60-foot tall light poles on ball fields for nighttime lighting. Julie?
Thank you. Okay, just a quick background of this, and the Town of Southampton Zoning Board of Appeals attorney Katie Garvin is here, and the Parks Department, Kristen Doulos, Parks Department Director, is, I believe, available as well. So in April, the ZBA referred an application to the Commission for variances related to nighttime lighting structures at Hampton West Park in West Hampton in the core preservation area. And the town has received requests from the East End Little League and the Town of Southampton United Soccer Club to provide lighting to extend activities in the evening hours in the spring and fall at this town park. The proposal, as Judy said, involves installing 6 60-foot tall light poles on the baseball field. And at the May 26th commission meeting, the commission authorized sending a letter with comments and questions on the proposal to the town related to plans for the park, alternatives, and potential environmental impacts, including adverse impacts on the adjacent dwarf pine plains, which is a globally rare ecosystem in the core preservation area. So on June 11th, the ZBA responded with a letter received in the commission office, providing information and some modifications to their proposal, including that there's no master plan for the park, but that there are parking and restroom facility concerns, and that work may be undertaken to address some community complaints related to those facilities. Reducing the seasonal duration of lighting to April through September, and no lighting would occur from October through March. Lighting would shut off at 9:30 as opposed to the originally proposed 10 p.m. And reducing the brightness of lighting from 5700 to 4500 Kelvin, which is the scale, the color correlated temperature scale associated with brightness. So the lower the temperature number, the warmer or more yellow light it will be. The light will be yellowish, and the higher the number, the colder and blue tones. So for example, the scale indicates that approximately 2500 is a warm white tone in say a living room, and 3500 would be the range for bathrooms and kitchens, and 5500 is like a prison lighting color. So the town provided that letter, and the town has made themselves available today at this meeting if you have any questions. And
If I may, I just wanted to make a statement that I'm going to abstain from any discussion or vote on this town project, as I don't think that it's appropriate for a designated alternate to the supervisor and commissioner to discuss or vote on this matter. That being said, we do have town representatives to present this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to note for the record, while Marty may very well will abstain, he's present for quorum purposes. So there is still a quorum. If you recuse yourself, you will leave the room. There won't be a quorum any longer. The commission couldn't take action.
Yeah, I'm not recusing, I'm abstaining. Thank you.
I just would say at this point, the governor appointing a representative in a situation like this takes on even more significance, because if there's another abstention, this project may not go forward.
So just so I can understand, if I may, Madam Chair, this is Andy Freeling, Suffolk County Planning. There are some mitigations being offered on behalf of the project sponsors, including a window of non-activity. I'm curious, what target species are they targeting, if you will, to mitigate an impact that would require turning off the lights? Is there a particular target species?
Well, we have Katie Garvin present and some other folks from the parks that probably could provide answers to those questions.
Yep. This is Katie Garvin. I'm an assistant town attorney. I'm the attorney for the zoning board. I've been working with Parks and Rec to prepare their ZBA application for this. I do have Kristen Julos was not able to come, but I do have John Irwin from Parks and Rec, and I have David Kulos from Muscat Lighting. But I believe that the reason that they had scaled back this season was, and I know that Marty's abstained, but I believe it was for maybe a buck moth. That was my understanding. There was some species that was possibly mating during the October months, and that, we just kind of thought maybe that would be helpful.
No long-eared bats or things of that nature.
I'm sorry?
Long-eared bats, BAT.
Yeah, I don't. We just kind of thought that might be helpful. We were trying to think of any further mitigation that could be made.
So Katie, are you saying that you spoke with a qualified wildlife expert to indicate to you or provided their expertise that window is a broad window to affect many species? Or are we just talking about the buck moth, and then has the buck moth been sighted on site? And I thought that was an elevation related species, so I'm not quite sure if that's a proper target species.
Yeah, I have no further information on that. And again, I guess, reducing any of the months we thought would be, better for the environment as well.
And just along those lines, changing the wavelength of the light, I'm not sure if that affects the buck moth, since they have ability to see and smell beyond our ability. But I'm just curious again, has that been bounced off a qualified wildlife biologist? And is this mitigation relevant to the impacts that we may have? So that's my general concern, is that I would just like a statement on the record. It's unfortunate that Southampton's wildlife expert has recused himself or abstained from the discussion. But I think that the record needs that in order to distinguish this project from other projects.
Okay. I mean, I can see if I can try to, submit something like that in writing, but I don't know. I can't answer that question.
And just to augment what Andy is saying relative to other species, and I know the Brookhaven supervisor cited the long-haired bats, but these kinds of lights have been cited as a somewhat pernicious issue for migratory birds. And so that clearly is much more broad sweeping. And I would conjecture would have impacts over the course of time that these lights are being used. So I think to just expand on Andy's point, there does need to frankly be a somewhat more expansive environmental consideration of the impacts of this lighting.
I would just add that the Natural Heritage Program lists about 28 different insect species in the dwarf pine plains. So, that definitely is not the only insect that could be, whether it's there or not, and whether it could be impacted or not. So there's been no information on as far as what is the existing condition and what would be impacted. There was no environmental assessment done like that, right? Is that correct, Katie?
In terms of what, an EAF, in terms of secret, or just in terms of an analysis for the lighting?
Well, the potential impacts of lighting on habitat.
Oh, no.
I just also wanted to inquire whether there have been any assessment of visual impacts from the poles in that area as well, considering the nature of the dwarf pine plains, and that it is a globally rare ecosystem. That should be something that would be also evaluated or considered in some manner in terms of visual impacts as well. Do I have the sense that the commission members, maybe this should be held over to the next meeting then? So to give the Southampton time to gather more information?
So it sounds like a plausible suggestion.
Whatever time they feel they may need.
Well, I mean, we can certainly get more information, but I guess, I mean, there are, again, with our, lighting expert here, if the 60-foot pole is the minimum that the town needs in order to meet the IDA requirements. So, I mean, that we've kind of scaled back as much as we can, as far as I can tell.
Well, I don't think the issues that is being posed is scaling, it's impact. And there seems to be a dearth of information relative to that particular point. And that's, I think, a prevailing concern among some of the members of the commission.
Katie, could I add, I had sent out a criteria checklist from the International Dark Sky Association in the interest of trying to move this forward. I don't know if Marty had a chance to share that with you, but perhaps that might be helpful in terms of this project.
Well, Dave, I'm going to let you speak to the IDA sheet. We did get that.
Okay.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm David Koulis with Musco Sports Lighting. We've kind of been brought on as the town's consultant for the lighting design and more so the environmental impact and trying to maintain dark sky compliance, and with also respect to the town of Southampton's lighting codes. So the design that is part of our proposal is indeed conforming with the International Dark Skies design criteria for community-friendly outdoor sports lighting. We have gone through great lengths to ensure we can meet it's more so a voluntary effort for the lighting system to meet the International Dark Skies criteria on top of what's required also of the town's code, which is very strict as well. In terms of the overall impact of the lighting, I'm not sure if the commission has seen the informational packets that was submitted as well. That has a lot of information about the overall scope of the project and the overall envelope of the lighting. So there's very little impact or light spill beyond the tree line of the in the park. Probably talking less than 30, 40 feet into the tree line area overall. And in terms of the pole heights specifically, one thing that was also, key part here is having that happy medium between being able to meet all of the town's requirements and also staying within any FAA limits based on the proximity of the park to Gabreski Airport. We did have to file with the FAA and they approved the 60-foot pole heights. That is the optimal height for this particular type of field lighting in terms of ensuring player safety and having adequate illumination levels on the field, and then also minimizing the off-field light spill, glare, and any light pollution as well. So if we go lower, it ends up not being able to meet the town's code in terms of light spill, and we're also not able to meet the dark sky compliance either.
Okay, so then at this point, how does the commission want to handle this matter at this point? Would you prefer to ask for additional information? Do you want to take action? What is your preference?
Additional information.
Specifically in environmental terms, because light spill, again, speaks to one aspect. It does not necessarily, for example, as you might well understand, speak to the impact on migratory birds, which aren't confined to the perimeter around this field. So I think that is certainly a relevant issue that I'm still not hearing any answers to. So that would be useful and probably would help the acceptance of the project.
So just so I understand, finding out all of this information will what? Make it if we have found that we've mitigated this, it makes it less likely that the installation of these lights is development? I mean, is that the goal here?
Well, it's important to be able to address whether there's going to be any impacts, because that also determines whether this would be more considered development or not. I mean, obviously, this is a globally rare ecosystem. This is a special, unique area that is why there's a lot of concern. Providing the information will help make your case for determination with regard to this project. We don't have sufficient information at this time. Okay. Do you want us to then, Katie, schedule this for the next meeting, or do you want to be in touch with Julie for when you feel you have sufficient information to come back?
What you mean, once a month?
We meet once a month on the third Wednesday.
Yep, you can put me on for next month. And I'll either let Julie know I have it or I don't. I mean, this kind of was we were unprepared for this.
Okay. All right. So then moving on to item 3C, Upper Mills Dam, Peconic River Migratory Fish Passage in the vicinity of Viper River Substation, Town of Southampton, determination. Ms. Hargrave, Julie.
Thank you. Okay, just to give you a little background, and there is a draft resolution that was emailed to the commission members. On June 9th, the Peconic Estuary Partnership submitted a letter requesting a determination on the construction of a fish passage at Upper Mills Dam and Peconic River in Riverhead. The project is designed to restore historic upstream freshwater and spawning habitat of migratory fish, including alewives and American eel in the Peconic Estuary, which have been disrupted by 6 dams along the Peconic River. The Upper Mills Dam is in a road called Middle Country Road, south of Route 25 and north of the Lipa Riverhead substation. And the construction of this fish passage will require the road to be temporarily closed for 4 months. The road is PSEG's primary access to their substation. And in order to continue to provide access to the substation, an alternative access route is necessary. The alternative access is an existing dirt road on the LIPA property that will be temporarily improved for vehicles to pass safely to the substation. The dirt path is accessible presently from Nugent Drive. So either a recycled concrete aggregate with a geotextile fabric or swamp mats will be temporarily placed in the path for access. The RCA is significantly more economical than the placement of swamp mats for this project. So the applicant has committed to restoration of the temporary access after the fish passage construction is complete. And the fish passage is environmental restoration, which is an activity excluded in the development definitions in Article 57. And the draft resolution that was sent to you speaks to that information.
I'd like to make a motion deeming the activity environmental restoration and non-development consistent with the draft resolution before us.
Thank you.
Town of Riverhead would second that as this project straddles the Peconic River with Southampton.
Any further discussion?
Only that I hope they built the fish dam at Forge Road, because they built the fish dam at Edwards, and you have two other fish dams that need to be built to have the one at Edwards be effective.
Okay.
Right. Thank you.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. The motion passed. The vote is 4-0. That brings us to the second public comment section on the agenda. We did not receive any comments via email during the meeting. Is there anyone currently present via Zoom from the public that wishes to speak? Please raise your hand or enter your request in the chat box feature.
Nothing. You have nothing.
Okay. Anyone, there was no people on that have called in as well, right?
That is correct. No one called in.
Okay. So that brings us to the end of the agenda. We do need to have an advisory session. We need to move into advisory session to discuss pending litigation. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to go into advisory.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Are we coming back for business, John? And we will not be coming, I apologize, we won't be coming back into public session. So we will be as adjourning as well after the advisory session. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed 4-0. All right, so if you need, you should call in on that conference number that should have been sent to you. If you don't have it, we can resend it. Does everyone have that conference number, call
Yep.
number? Okay, so we'll see you in about 5 minutes, if that's okay.
Sure.
All right, so we'll see you at 3:15. Thank you.
Thank you.